Welcome to Tax Strategy Digest, where we explore the fascinating world of finance. Join us as we dive into the stories, insights, and experiences of experts, thought leaders, and everyday people who are making a difference in this field. Through engaging conversations and thought-provoking discussions, we'll take a deep dive into the latest research, trends, and innovations shaping finance. So sit back, relax, and get ready to learn something new on this exciting journey with us. Today, our guest is Chris Alman, the founder of Equip Financial Partners. Chris helps business owners do more of what they love by creating an exit strategy that not only builds value in their business, but also helps them convert it to personal wealth. Chris, great to have you.
Hey, Paul, thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Awesome. And Chris, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do, a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I've got a little bit of an interesting background. Like I started in real estate and was flipping houses right out of college and making great money doing it, but always kind of had that sense of wanting to help people. And so then I went from that working with investors into trying to find something else I could do, and kind of fell into financial planning and realized from there that there's so many types of financial planners, and there's like so many specializations that just really enjoyed it. And then as I got into it further, kind of, yeah, probably 8 years in or so, really started working with more business owners and just realizing that the typical financial advice is not geared for business owners. It's, driven by investments. And, a lot of business owners don't have investments outside of their company. That is their main investment. So, really, the last few years, I really kind of just dove into that, full, full steam ahead, and um, decided about a year ago that I was going to really just do this for myself, and start, kind of trying to change that outcome for owners. And that's when I decided to firm or that's when I decided to, launch my own firm in January of this year. So really excited to kind of dive into that now.
Nice. I love it. And what was the passion really just behind getting into your own firm? I mean, did you
Yeah, so
it's not
I
easy to
knew early on that I wanted to run my own business. Like I've had that
yeah,
entrepreneurial spirit since I was a kid. And for me, the the idea of it is, there's a lot of people that get into it just because they love that thing that they're doing, right? They're very passionate about the job. For me, like I really love business strategy. So being able to have those impacts, and lead your business where you want it to go, and be able to try things and fail. To me, that's got a lot of appeal. It's not for everybody, but if you've got owners watching right now, they know exactly what I'm talking about. Like they enjoy the aspect of making something that's theirs and just being able to do it the way that they would want to. So yeah, it's kind of a big driver for me.
do you have any advice for someone who's watching and they're contemplating starting their own business?
Yeah, think about where you want to be. Like where do you want your business to go? Right? So why are you getting into the business? Because a lot of times what happens is you're really passionate about, the thing that you're doing. So if it's, baking, for instance, like you might be the greatest baker, and I'll steal this from Michael Gerber. He uses this example, and it's a perfect one in his book, The E-Myth. But he talks about, the girl that loves to bake, and it brings back really great memories. She did it with her aunt for a long time, and so she gets into baking, and decides that she wants to run her own bakery, be able to do things and create things her own way. And then gets down into it and realizes she's also the janitor. She's also the bookkeeper. She's also wearing all these other hats. And it's like at some point, she just wishes she could bake again. Right. So start kind of with the end in mind. That's kind of what I do is in the exit strategies, but think about where you want to be. I mean, that's really got to play a part in that, so that you have a clear picture of what it's going to look like, because you don't want to get into it and then realize a few years down the road, I don't like wearing all those hats and I wish I would have done something different.
Got it. And your main goal is helping with exit strategies. When should an owner start with the exit strategy? I know we just talked about how maybe they could start their business. When is it a good time to start looking at exiting their business?
Yeah. So one of the big issues that I've found with, talking about exit strategies, right? Most of the time, even the industry is kind of guilty of putting all of the emphasis on the actual exit, like on the sell of your business. Well, a lot of owners don't want to sell their business, right? Like they would rather just go out, every day, and that's where they get recharged. That's what fills their batteries. They love what they're doing. And eventually they just kind of want to, die on the battlefield, right? Like that's what gets them going. That's what they enjoy. But if you're going to do that, like don't leave it for your family to clean up, right? Like make sure that you've got other things in place. So when it comes to, when should you start planning? Really, like I said, start on day one, right? Start looking at, well, at some point I won't be able to do this. And whether that's because of a disability or some kind of disruption, disagreement, divorce, like whatever it may be, like life happens. So if you start looking at your business from that perspective and look at it and say, well, how can I, add value into my business so that at some point it's more transferable, then you're just setting yourself up for success because it's not about selling your business. It's about having a business that can be sold. Right. And so when you start looking at it from that perspective and you think about, the customers that you're working with, the employees that you have, if you're a startup type company and you're looking for, that injection of capital and you're looking for those investors, you know, all of those different people want to know that you have an exit in place. They want to know what the end goal is, right? And a lot of owners I've talked with get worked up about, letting their employees know that, hey, I'm planning my exit because they think, oh no, they're all going to leave. They think that I don't care about the company. But the reality is that by explaining it and telling them why you're having an exit and how it benefits them, you're basically giving them security so that they know, okay, there's a plan in place. If something happens to him, here's what happens to the business and us and our jobs. If you're the investor, okay, now we know when we get our money back.
Right.
So really it's just start as soon as you can and start looking at building value, not just trying to build cash flow.
And so what if an owner doesn't want to sell their business? What
Yeah, man. I mean, I don't want
strategies?
to sell mine. Like I have no
Yeah.
plans right now to sell my business, and a lot of owners don't. So, being an owner operator is different than just owning a business. If you're a true just business owner, you own a business that will run itself. You have the oversight and kind of the guidance, and you have the vision, the mission for the company, and just make sure that it runs, but ultimately it runs by itself. Now, if you want to continue to work in your business, then that's perfectly fine. Like just hire people that can run the business for you and let you focus on the things that you love. Right. So if you really just love running the business and like that's what you want to do, and it's a full-time job, that's perfectly fine. I mean, that's your exit. But at the same time, you can't be putting all of your eggs in that one basket of your business because if you're not going to sell it, you want to have some kind of income or wealth when you're finished in order to take care of your family, right? I mean, at the end of the day, if something happens to you and all of your eggs are in that one basket, then your family could really be left with nothing. So if you're not going to plan on selling your business, then hey, let's put some other strategies in place so that we can maximize the income that you have now. Change what you're doing for your retirement. You just need to invest in other things. But that's perfectly fine to continue to work in your business. And at some point, maybe you hire somebody that can be the CEO, the president of the company, and run things, and let you just get back to serving the customers that you like. So
I
yeah, I
love
mean
it.
it's just another form of exit.
Yeah. No,
You're
I
just
agree.
exiting a role instead of the company.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I know we've talked a little bit about this actually in the past. Like you, obviously, I talk with a lot of business owners on a day-to-day basis, and I don't feel like they're really getting the good advice or financial guidance that they need. And I feel like sometimes you've kind of mentioned the same to me. Do you want to maybe dive into why you think that might be happening?
Yeah, well, like I said, when I got into this industry, realizing that the vast majority of the industry is built, or the financial planning, financial advice industry is really just set up to guide people around investments, right? And typically that's the stock market. Sometimes it's real estate and private equity and things like that, but for the most part, it's the stock market. And just a lot of owners, they spend more of their time in their business, and they see the stock market as something that's scary. They don't have a lot of control over it. And why would they want to invest in something that they don't have any control over when they can put money in their business, and potentially get 20, 30, 50% a year returns on what they're putting in? It just doesn't make sense for them. And so, unfortunately, though, when you look at the financial industry as a whole, because it is investment driven, a lot of times, the owners come in, they're looking for help. It may be just to, understand, like, should they refinance their mortgage, or, should they, what kind of life insurance do they need? What kind of disability do they need? How can they minimize their taxes this year? Well, if the engagements are mostly investment driven, there's not really that incentive for those advisors to take them on as clients, because they're not going to get paid, right? If they're not selling a product or something of that nature, then there's really not a lot of incentive there. And the same thing is true even for a lot of the fee only financial planners that I've come across. I mean, I was one of them. If the owner didn't have investments to manage, then yeah, we could do like a one-off kind of financial plan, give them a little bit of guidance, but it wasn't really going to be a great long-term fit. So, now what I'm trying to do is, take it so that the investments don't really have to be a big piece of it, right? You still have all the complexities, and probably more than most people. So it's really just about focusing on, the tax strategies, having estate plans in place, making sure that your business has a plan to translate that into your personal wealth. And so, yeah, I think that's really what it is just taking the focus off of the investments and realizing, hey, like, you have a great investment. So
Okay, perfect. No, that makes a lot of sense. Um, and kind of on the same topic, when we last spoke, I think it was last week or so, you told me, I thought it was a pretty crazy statistic. It was something like 78% of owners are counting on selling their business for their retirement, but
yeah,
only like a fifth of them, so like 20-ish% will actually end up selling. And even sometimes they might not get all that they thought for retirement, I assume.
yeah,
Obviously that has
yeah,
to
no,
change. Do
yeah.
you know kind of why that's happening or?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the thing that I found is that with most owners, it just comes down to not having a real plan in place for it. It's like you're so busy every day just putting out fires, right? You're constantly addressing customer concerns or management issues, or just market things that are changing, and you're always so busy in the business that you're not really thinking about what's next long term. And that's why I was saying, like, if you start earlier with kind of having an exit strategy, that's that's you just putting yourself in a position to have a business that's transferable, right? Because you're not just focusing on bringing in income, you're focusing on building value, which is going to increase your sales. It's going to strengthen your relationship with your customers, because you're focusing on those things, right? Instead of just focusing on the income or the cash flow. It's really easy to have income in a business. And if you look at, like, let's say you have two companies, company A and company B. Company A has $1 million of revenue. Company B has $1 million of revenue. Let's say they both have the same profit margins, but one has an owner that works 4 hours a week and the other has an owner that works 80, right? Like, well, which one, if you're a buyer, which one do you want to buy? Well, you want to buy the one with the owner that doesn't have to be there, right? They have the same cash flow, same profit margins, but one is sellable and the other's not. And so that's what happens a lot of times as owners. Like, you love your business and you enjoy what you do, but you're not putting it in a position so that other people would be willing to take it on and, and have that same passion for it that you do.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder to find, which is why I think, only 20% of them actually do result in a sale. So, and the other thing too is that, you know, they're counting on that. That's 78%. That's well over three quarters that are counting on selling their business in order to fund that next stage. And if only 20% actually will, man, there's a huge problem there. Right? Like, where does that leave most owners? And that's why I'm doing what I do, because I want to change the outcome. Just put people in a position so that they can be successful.
Nice. And would you mind maybe walk through like and it doesn't have to be a step by step, but like a 30,000 foot overview of kind of the steps you take with a business owner if they reach out to you and how you might get them from, hey, I have no plan whatsoever for selling my business to
Yeah.
just like a brief, hey, this is how you're going to do it. This is what the plan looks like. Something like
Yeah.
that.
So there's really three main kind of stages, if you will. Right.
Okay.
So the first stage is just to, identify where you're at right now. And so part of that is determining, is my business ready? Like, does it have the things in place that you need to have? Like, do you have KPIs that are tracking things that are important to your business or your industry, right? Like your profit margins, and there's plenty of KPIs, but you know, where are you at? Like, do you look ready from a buyer's perspective? Then, is your business attractive? Does it have the things that they're looking for? Do you have something special that not everyone else has that makes your business worth pursuing? Then at the same time, this is where I do most of my work is helping, owners understand, what do they need personally, right? So how much wealth do you need, not just to live on right now, but to live on in the future? If something happens to you, or if you get to the point where, hey, you're ready to focus more on doing what you love, so you exit the role. It doesn't mean you have to sell your business. You just exit out of that CEO role, maybe, and you get back into a sales role or something where you're dealing with customers, but that's going to drop your pay, right? So you still have to know what level of income you need. So it's
Yeah.
really just about identifying kind of what your walk away number is, and whether that's walking away from the role or walking away completely. It doesn't really matter. You just need to be able to know where you're at. So that's kind of stage one, is just identify where you're at and where the business is. How much is your business worth? You don't have to have it perfect, but just kind of get that range of multiples to know, in our industry, let's say they typically go from, 4 to 8 times revenue, just to make it simple. It gets far more complicated, but let's just say that's it. Well, where do you fall on that scale? Are you best in class where you're going to get 8 times the revenue, or are you going to get, one? Right.
Yeah.
So just knowing where you're at, it helps you see, okay, I've got work I need to do. And if I do that work, now instead of my business being worth, like 2 million, now it's worth 15, right? Just because you're doing the work that needs to be done. So that's that first stage. The next stage is really just to identify what you need to do, right? It's kind of putting that plan in place, getting your personal financial plan done, making sure that you're protecting your assets, your wealth, your family, your income, making sure you have life insurance and disability, and making sure that you've got an estate plan that takes care of the business if something happens to you. It's also on the business side, it's making sure you've got disability, for your key employees. You have key employee insurance, all that kind of stuff. It's
Yeah.
just really about protecting it and putting a plan in place to grow. Right. And then, if you're doing that every 90 days, you just kind of reassess, like, hey, am I ready to exit? And it's not that you are. I mean, you're probably not going to be, every 90 days. Well, no, but you're just making sure that you're still on track. If you still love it, you keep growing. And eventually you're going to get to that point where you say, okay, I'm starting to get tired. And I'll tell you, more times than not, the owner has the sense of being ready to leave before the business is actually ready to be left. it's not in the right shape that it needs to be in. So again, if you start sooner, your business is going to be closer to being ready. But just having that plan, reassessing it, and then you get to that third stage, which is where you make that decision to exit, whether that's exiting that role or your business. And that's where you really kind of dive in and understand, well, what are my exit options? Yeah, maybe you want to sell to a third party in it, somebody that's wanting to come in and run it, be that hands-on person, or maybe it's a strategic buyer, somebody that you've got that intellectual property or just that
Right.
it factor that they need, and they can translate it into theirs. So that's kind of like that high level view. You understand what your options are, and then that's when you put together that plan to turn your business into wealth.
Nice. Okay. A little not off topic, but kind of segueing just a little bit. I usually like to ask this as we start to wrap up, just because
Yeah.
I want people watching to learn a little bit more about you and why you do this. So what's your why?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I've asked myself that many times and have done a lot of soul searching on it. But at the end of the day, it just comes down to seeing people be successful, right? I mean, I feel like people will make good choices if they have um, the right information, right? When you're lacking information, it's really hard to make a good choice. And so, I mean, I looked at my granddad. He had a very successful company, did really well, got to a point where he couldn't physically do things anymore. And because he was that guy that was just always in the business and running it and doing things, he ended up basically closing down and didn't have anything to show for, and if he would have just started putting other people in place, making sure that he had systems and processes and all that fun stuff, that he could have had something there to show for. And so that's really what I want to do. I just want to change the outcome, because if the statistics being the way that they are, I mean, 78% are counting on it and only 20% are going to sell. I mean, somebody's got to do something, and that's why I wake up every day and really just try to provide as much information and value as I can.
I love it. You're the guy who's doing something for that
Trying, man.
78%. I love it. Well, Chris, I really appreciate your time as we wrap up here. Of course, I'll put a link to your LinkedIn, your website, all down below the video. But if someone's listening and they want to reach out to you just to learn a little bit more about what you do, what's the best way?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm always open to connecting on LinkedIn. That's probably where I'm the most active. And if you've got that link in the description, that'll be great. But otherwise, I mean, I'm happy for someone to call, and I'll give you the number. It's 251-373-8363. So, I'm always open to having conversations. I usually answer the phone, even when it's the telemarketers, but sometimes that shoots me in the foot. But at the end of the day, I love making new connections and just helping people where I can, whether we work together or not. So yeah,
Awesome.
it's
Well,
probably
I
the
love
two
it.
best plays.
Sweet. Well, Chris, I really appreciate your time, and hopefully people got a lot out of this. I know I did, and we'll talk again soon.
Awesome, man. Hey, I appreciate it, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Of course.